In Chapter 1, Odessa, the wrong princess of Quentis, stands on a cliff, contemplating whether to jump into the ocean below. She feels unimportant and constrained by the expectations placed on her, especially in comparison to her half-sister May, who has been groomed for royalty and will soon marry the crown prince of Tura. Odessa is due at a meeting with the Turan warriors, but she resents her role in the royal family, knowing her presence is unnecessary. Banner, her fiancé, arrives to fetch her, and they discuss the upcoming meeting where Banner will confront the Guardian, the man responsible for killing his brother. Despite the tension, Odessa decides to walk back to the castle instead of riding with him. As she reflects on May's upcoming marriage and the freedom it will bring, she realizes she will miss her sister, even though she resents her privileged life. Odessa runs toward the cliff, finally leaping into the unknown. In Chapter 2, Odessa sneaks through the castle after her cliff dive, reflecting on her past jumps and the freedom they offered her. As she walks through a gruesome gallery filled with violent artwork of monstrous crux creatures, she feels the weight of her royal duties and the looming migration of the crux. Odessa encounters a Voster priest, whose chilling presence and fluid magic unsettle her as he forms a crown from water above her head. After escaping the priest, she rushes back to her room where Margot chastises her for being late. As Odessa changes into her drab gray gown, she learns that the Turans have killed Marrowills, monstrous creatures attacking trade routes. Margot mentions the Guardian's arrival with the Turans, a feared figure with a dark reputation. Odessa, burdened by her royal obligations and Margot's expectations, reluctantly prepares for the upcoming meeting, reflecting on her lack of agency in her own life. In Chapter 3, Odessa sneaks into the royal throne room, where she joins Margot and May as Father addresses the Turan warriors. The Turans, large and armed, had successfully killed 6 Marrowills, which Father acknowledges with thanks. Odessa notices the Turan prince, Zavier Wolf, who is betrothed to May. Tension rises as 2 Voster priests enter, one levitating, and Odessa feels the discomfort of their magic. The Guardian, a feared and mysterious figure, follows. Father seems unusually accommodating toward the Turans, hinting at something more than just a simple payment for services. As Odessa is introduced, the Guardian suddenly declares that Zavier will marry Odessa instead of May, shocking everyone in the room. The announcement leaves Odessa bewildered and the room tense, with the Guardian's influence clear in the unexpected turn of events. In Chapter 4, the tension in the throne room escalates as Odessa processes the shock of being chosen as Prince Zavier's bride. Margot grips her arm painfully, and Father reacts coldly to the situation, while the room erupts in confusion and anger. Banner asserts that Odessa is his fiancée, but the Guardian dismisses him, supporting Zavier's claim. The Voster priests, wielding magic, intervene, revealing the Chain of Sevens, an ancient decree that grants the slayer of 7 female monsters the right to demand a bride. Despite Father's objections, the High Priest of the Voster insists that Odessa will marry Zavier as payment for the Marrowills killed by the prince. Father is forced to bow in submission to the High Priest's power, leaving Odessa feeling trapped. The room grows unbearably cold as the Voster's magic intensifies, making the consequences of defying them clear. In Chapter 5, after the High Priest's magic subsides, Odessa processes the devastating reality that she is now bound to Prince Zavier as part of the Turan Treaty. Margot's harsh grip on her arm and the tension between family members highlight the strain of the situation. Father tries to calm her, but it's clear he's playing a dangerous game with the Turans. Odessa is told that May, the favored daughter, was supposed to marry Zavier, but due to the Turans' demand for a bride prize, Odessa is now the chosen one. Father reveals that the Turan's plan was never about love, but a strategic move to strengthen trade and secure vital resources against the looming Crux migration. Odessa is tasked with spying on the Turans, learning about the Guardian's powers, and, if necessary, killing him. Despite her resistance, she is compelled to obey with her fate sealed. In Chapter 6, Odessa is prepared for her wedding by Margot, with the help of Brielle and Jocelyn. Despite the effort, she is forced to wear a pale gray dress instead of blue, which Margot insists on for the ceremony. While getting ready, Odessa reflects on the painful situation and the looming marriage to Prince Zavier, which was thrust upon her. As she's dressed and prepared for the journey to Tura, Odessa seeks comfort in her sister May, sharing a rare moment of vulnerability. May, in return, warns Odessa to be ruthless and not trust anyone, advising her to survive the treacherous path ahead.